I've never liked being alone. I've always found someone to talk to. In the past years, this became harder and harder. I can't seem to know how to talk to people anymore. But I would always prefer loneliness to what's happening right now. Because I think someone or something is living in my house with me. I've never seen it, not directly, but I hear it constantly, patiently, like it's waiting for me to notice something I'm not supposed to. The strange part is when it happens. Only when the lights are on. During the day, nothing. At night, if I sit in the dark, everything feels normal. But the moment I flip a switch, the noise starts again. Not from the walls, not from the floor, just around me. Like it exists in the same space I do, just slightly out of reach of my eyes. At first, it was easy to ignore. A faint hum, barely noticeable. I told myself it was electrical wiring in the walls, cheap bulbs, something like that. So I checked everything. Replaced bulbs, turned off breakers. I even had repairmen come in and look at the circuits. They found nothing. And by then, the hum had already changed. It started following me. I began to notice it when I walked. A second set of footsteps, almost perfectly synced with mine, but not quite, just slightly off, a fraction of a second too late or too early. At first, I thought it was an echo, until one night, I stopped walking in the middle of my hallway, and I still heard one more step behind me. Not loud, not aggressive, just late. I didn't turn around that time. I told myself I imagined it, that I was tired. But after that, it stopped trying to match me perfectly. Sometimes it would walk when I didn't, one or two soft steps behind me while I stood still, as if correcting a mistake. Like it was learning. I tried to catch it. I used my phone camera, holding it over my shoulder as I walked. I passed mirrors quickly, doubling back to look at them from different angles. I even walked past windows at night, hoping to see a reflection that didn't belong to me. Nothing. Every time I looked, everything was normal. But the sounds kept getting closer. A few days ago, I felt it for the first time. I was standing in my kitchen with the lights on, just staring at nothing, listening to that almost familiar hum. Then, right at the back of my neck, I felt warm air. Not like a draft, like someone standing inches behind me, breathing carefully against my skin. I spun around so fast, I knocked a chair over. Nothing was there, but the breathing didn't stop immediately. It lingered for a second longer. now in front of me. Then a glass fell and it was gone. That was when I realized something worse. It wasn't tied to my house. I started hearing it in my car, too. Only when the interior light was on. The same faint hum. The same uneven breath. I tested it. I parked, turned the light on, and stepped out of the car, backing away slowly. The noise stayed inside. I remember feeling relieved, smiling even, like I'd finally put distance between me and whatever this was. But the moment I got home, turned on the lights, and stepped inside, it was already there, waiting. That was yesterday. Today, I stopped trying to run from it. I've been standing in my bathroom for hours now, every light on, staring straight into the mirror. At first, nothing was wrong. Just me, tired eyes, pale skin, the same reflection I've checked 100 times before. Then I noticed something small. When I moved my hand, my shadow didn't move with it right away. I froze and told myself it was a delay, my brain catching up. But then it happened again. I moved my hand slightly, and my shadow hesitated again. Just for a fraction of a second, and then it followed. My chest feels tight now. I haven't moved since. I don't know if it knows that I've noticed, or if it's been waiting for this. Because the more I look, the more I see it. Not clearly, not fully, but enough. My shadow in the reflection doesn't quite match the light behind me. It stretches in the wrong direction. It shifts when I don't. And every now and then, it rises. Just slightly, like it's standing up straighter than I am. I don't think I can outrun it. I don't think I ever could. Because it was never following me. It was just practicing. And just now, I swear, it moved before I did. And I think I'm the one trying to keep up now. I don't know how long I can stand here. My husband Mark grew up in a household with a very overbearing father. His father believed that as he was man of the house, then whatever he said was the truth. Mark's mother was bullied into agreeing to this, as she was too frightened to say anything. Mark was kicked out of his parents' home the day he turned 18, and we started dating not long afterwards. Mark had learned his father's mindset and tried to force me to obey him. It ended up with us having numerous fights until I threatened to dump him. He seemed to understand that he cannot force me to do something that I don't want to. He still doesn't consult me on a lot of things, as he once showed up with a Rottweiler and told me we adopted him. I got used to this shit from him and would call him out on it all the time. I could see it hurt his ego, but I wasn't going to be someone's trophy wife. I earn more than twice what he does, which really irritates him. Recently, he has reconnected with his father after his mother passed away from cancer. He has become worse than ever lately, as his father has been egging him on to put me in my place. I have tried talking to Mark about this, but he just shrugged his shoulders and walks off. This morning, I woke up in agonizing pain and passed out a few times, as it was so unbearable. I finally managed to stay awake long enough to move the duvet off me. I gazed down at my stomach, which had been sliced open, and I could see my organs moving inside. Mark and his father walked into the room, and his father had a really smug look on his face. Mark clutched something in his hand before placing it down on the bed beside me. I almost vomited while gazing down at the tiny little body, while Mark announced that he had changed his mind about wanting to become a father. He patted me on the head and told me to hurry up and get myself tidied up, as they are both hungry. Hello everyone, my name is Donovan. I've recently discovered a horrific truth about myself that has kept me confined to my bedroom for the last week. A truth that changed the trajectory of my life and irreversibly altered my brain. And to think, it was just so accidental. Just one small incident, and I was forced to face the brunt of reality. For years, I went about my life as though nothing was wrong. I didn't feel any different than anyone else. I didn't see myself as anything more than just another teenager, managing his way through the murky waters of high school. I did struggle finding friends, though. That was a big weakness of mine. I'd greet people offhandedly in the hallways, and they'd greet me back, often through cold stares. But I could never manage finding a group that I really fit into. What helped me tremendously during those lonely times was my vibrant home life. I could not have asked for better parents. My mother worked as an accountant and had invested a ton into Apple before it really became the corporate giant that it is today. Mom worked from home for the most part, and Dad had retired the minute he made his first 10 million. My mother didn't work because she had to. She liked to work. She liked knowing that she served a purpose other than being my dad's trophy wife. She hated being referred to as that. "A trophy wife," she'd say. "Such an outdated term." She never let her disdain show, however. She'd simply smile wider, flashing her beautifully white teeth, before laughing and thanking the person for the compliment, her fist balled tightly at her side. And before you even think it, yes, my father loved my mother. They were soulmates. She was the woman who had his heart, and he had hers. Though our house was bigger, the love remained the same. Writing this now, it feels like my brain is just covering for me. I know what I know, and I just can't force myself to believe what I know isn't real. My parents were very attentive. Not helicopter parents, but caring parents. They were there for me when I needed them most. I can't tell you how many times I'd come home from a long day at school only to find my dad in the kitchen, whipping up some homemade supper, while my mom lay curled up on the couch, knitting the same scarf as always as she waited for me to tell her about my day. Dad brought the food, and Mom brought the comfort. And together we'd sit for hours while I rambled on about what was bothering me. Together we'd dissect the problem, find the solution, and by the end, I'd feel brand new. So much stress for such a young boy, Mom would sigh. You need to learn to relax, sweetie. Dad would agree, his favorite phrase being, "All things pass, Donovan," which he'd announce like a mantra before picking a movie for us to watch, while Mom made hot tea for each of us. Mom's tea always made me feel better, no matter how hard a day I'd been having. Made with love and a special secret ingredient that only your dad knows about, she'd slyly announce with a wink to my father, who'd flash her a smile from his spot on the sofa. As high school came to an end, and it was time to choose a real career path, I had no other job in mind other than firefighting. I loved the idea of doing work that mattered, helping people when they were in dire need. Little did I know this decision would become the one that unraveled my mind piece by piece. You see, there are a few things you need to join the force, one of them being your medical records. Simple enough, right? My parents disagreed. They more than disagreed. They discouraged me from even wanting to join. From the moment they found out that joining meant sharing my medical records, they were completely against my plan. I found that comfort came less and less these days. Mom stopped knitting. Dad stopped cooking. We hardly spent any time together at all. One thing that never changed, however, as though a small gesture of hope, was that my mother continued to make my tea. She'd either hand it to me rudely, or I'd awake to find it sitting on my nightstand. Other than that, though, it felt like my parents were slowly turning their backs on me. It's not like I wouldn't ask them to support me. I'd pretty much beg them for assurance and help with my mental state. It was as though they ignored me every single time. You've grown now, Donovan. You can figure this out yourself. Your father and I want no part in it, my mom would taunt coldly. We argued a lot more than we'd ever done before. It really tore me apart to feel such intense coldness coming from someone who was as warm as my mother. Dad was no different. He just seemed to stop caring, as if my decision to join the fire department was a betrayal of him. We have more money than you could count in a lifetime, son. Why? Why do you want to do something as grueling as firefighting? I could make a call and have you in Harvard like that. He pressed, punctuating his last word with a snap of his fingers. It's work that matters, Dad. I want to help people. I want to be good. I don't know why you and Mom don't understand that." He looked at me like I had just slapped him in the face before marching upstairs without another word. As days dragged on, what had started as a small gesture of disapproval soon turned into snarls of malice and disgust. After weeks of insults and cruelties hurled at me by both my mom and dad, everything culminated in one event where my dad led me to the garage. Locking the door behind him, he got into his Mercedes and started the engine. He revved the car 4 or 5 times, and soon the garage became filled with carbon monoxide gas. The entire time, while I pounded on the window, begging him to stop, he just sat there, stone-faced, before cracking his window and teasing, as calm as could be. "Call the fire department. See if they'll come save you." He then rolled the window back up and revved the engine a few more times. I could feel my vision beginning to swim, and I was on the verge of passing out when the garage door flung open, and Mom pulled me into the house. She left me lying on the floor as she fanned me with some of her accountant papers, while I struggled to recover. Once my vision had gone back to normal, and I could actually breathe again, Mom leaned in close and whispered, "Now, did the fire department save you, or did your mother?" And as quickly as she appeared, she disappeared back upstairs to her office. Dad followed swiftly behind her, stepping over me like I was trash, before trotting up the stairs, without so much as glancing at me. This was the moment I made my decision to leave home. I didn't care how happy we once were. Happiness seemed foreign now. Safety seemed foreign now. I was going to get into the department whether they liked it or not. And I was going to be gone before they even got the chance to realize it. I stood to my feet and dusted myself off, mentally preparing to go upstairs to pack my things. I'd live out of my car if I had to. As I climbed the stairs, at the top, I was greeted by my mother and father. They looked down on me, wordlessly, disappointingly, before shaking their heads and returning to their bedroom in unison. Whatever. I packed a week's worth of clothes, enough to get away for a while and clear my head before coming back for the rest. As I walked out my front door, I glanced over my shoulder for one last look at the house before I completely separated it from my heart. Dad looked at me. He had a mixture of sadness, regret, and sorrow on his face as he said his goodbyes. "Be seeing ya, son," was all he could manage. That's all I got from the man I once looked up to, the man who had just attempted to murder me in the garage. And so I left. I left for the very last time. Well, for the last time in which I'd felt whole, at least. The drive to the medical center was an extremely emotional one. It was as if I could hear my parents' voices. Their
I love yous,
Mom's words of reassurance, and Dad's mantra. They all floated around in my head and caused my eyes to fill with tears. By the time I'd reached the medical center, I was a blubbering mess and had to clean myself up in the parking lot before going inside. I provided the front desk lady with my social security number, and I waited for her to return with my records. I took some comfort in knowing that I was one step closer to my dream, despite how my parents felt. But the collapse of my family weighed heavily on my chest. With a stoic expression, the lady returned and slid the papers to me, along with my social security card. As I sat in my car, reading through the paperwork, I could feel the breath in my lungs evaporate, while my heart seemed to stop beating. I rushed home, tears staining my cheeks and my mind racing at 1,000,000 miles a minute. I swung the front door open and screamed for my parents in a broken voice. But the house remained quiet. I raced upstairs, praying to God that they would be in their bedroom. But what I found instead was an empty room, void of any furniture. Not even a bed. In the living room, I found my mom's scarf, still sitting in her place on the sofa, still unfinished. In the kitchen, right by the tea kettle, was what made me fall to my knees and wail in sheer agony. My parents weren't here. They'd never been here. I had been experiencing an excruciating slip, and this little orange bottle of hollow Paratol proved it. My parents are dead. They died tragically when I was 17, and I had to listen to their screams of pain as they were roasted alive in a house fire at a party they were attending. My dad's retirement party, which had been thrown at a friend's house. I had been waiting outside after my mom assured me that they'd be leaving here in a few minutes, before the fire broke out, trapping all 20 of the guests inside. I wanted to help. I wanted to free them from the inferno, but I was too weak. I couldn't even get near the flames. Remorse, dread, and the terrifying realization that I had been living a lie all hit me at once, like a freight train from hell. And that's why I'm here, locked away in this bedroom. I can't cope with leaving right now, but I think I'm getting better. I truly believe that I'll be on the rise eventually. But for right now, I just want to lie here, alone. As I said, it's been about a week of nothing but darkness and moping for me. However, as I'm writing this, I believe that I smell that sweet aroma of my mother's tea, freshly brewing in my kitchen. And I think I'm gonna go see if she'll pour me a glass. I almost screamed in joy as I spotted him standing at the bus stop on a rainy day. I now finally had the opportunity to get my revenge on him for years of neglect. I decided to be sneaky and pulled up alongside him and offered him a lift. He gladly accepted and hopped in alongside me. I could see the confusion cross his face as I drove the car towards the abandoned factory. I pulled a knife out of the glove box, and he sat there, shaking in fear. I could smell the unmistakable stench of urine wafting from his seat. I dragged him out of the car and quickly inside the factory. I tied him to a rusted chair with some filthy rope I found lying on the ground. Tears began streaming down his face as he kept lying to me. But I know who he is. I began pulling out his teeth, one by one, and smiled as the blood pours down his face. I keep demanding he tells me how he does it every year, but he still continues to deny what is painfully obvious. I grabbed the knife and prepared to teach him a lesson for all the years that he somehow forgot about me, and began plunging the knife repeatedly into his chest. I gazed at the manic expression on the man's face as he stands over me with a knife, and know that my fate is already sealed. I gazed down at the red and white costume that was now crimson with my own blood, and wished that someone had told this guy that Santa Claus wasn't real.